Every tech company in the world is betting trillions on AI being the most important invention in human history. But the people who built it, many of them are terrified of what comes next. In the next 12 minutes, you'll learn why the original dream of AI was fundamentally broken from the start, how a completely different approach quietly took over and transformed everything around you, and the one thing Michael Wooldridge, one of the world's leading AI scientists, says almost nobody understands about intelligence itself, but once you do, it completely changes how you see the future of this technology. Let's get into it. If this video saved you 10 hours, hit subscribe. Chapter 1: The Dream That Almost Killed AI. The first thing that surprised me was just how old this obsession is. Most people think AI started with ChatGPT, or maybe Google, or somewhere in Silicon Valley in the last decade. Wrong. The dream of a thinking machine is ancient, but the scientific pursuit of it kicked off in the summer of 1956 at a conference in Dartmouth, New Hampshire, when a group of mathematicians made one of the most ambitious bets in intellectual history. Their bet? That human intelligence could be completely captured in a set of logical rules. You just had to write enough of them, build a big enough rule book, and you'd have a mind. This approach, called symbolic AI or good old-fashioned AI, actually worked. Kind of. For a while. These early systems could solve algebra problems, play checkers, even prove mathematical theorems. Governments poured money in. Headlines called it a revolution. The researchers told anyone who'd listen that a machine with human-level intelligence was maybe 10 years away. That was 1965. They were off by, well, we're still waiting on some of it. The rulebook approach collapsed. The real world is messy. It doesn't follow clean logic. You can't write a rule for every situation a mind encounters. Funding dried up. The field entered what became known as the AI winter, a long, brutal period of broken promises and abandoned labs. But here's where it gets interesting, because the second idea completely contradicts everything these pioneers believed intelligence actually was. Chapter 2: Stop trying to think, start trying to learn. So the second big idea is this: stop trying to program intelligence and start letting machines learn it themselves. This is the shift that changed everything. And it came from a completely different philosophy. Instead of writing rules, what if you just showed a machine millions of examples and let it figure out the patterns on its own? Think about how a child learns to recognize a dog. Nobody sits down with a toddler and explains, 4 legs, fur, tail, barks. You just point at enough dogs and say dog, and eventually, the brain abstracts the pattern. That's it. That's machine learning. The technical machinery behind this, neural networks, had actually been around since the 1940s. But for decades, nobody had enough data or enough computing power to make them work properly. They were a theoretical curiosity gathering dust. Then something changed. The internet happened. Suddenly there were billions of labeled examples of everything. Images, words, voices, faces. And computing got cheap enough to process it all. Neural networks went from a footnote to the entire story, almost overnight. Wooldridge makes a crucial point here that most people skip past. This wasn't progress in understanding intelligence. It was progress in mimicking its outputs. The machine doesn't know what a dog is. It knows that certain pixel patterns correlate with the labeled dog. That distinction sounds academic. It is not. And this sets up what I think is the most practical and most unsettling takeaway in the whole book. Chapter 3: The core insight. We built something we don't understand. Here's where Wooldridge puts his cards on the table, and because he's not a journalist or a tech blogger but an actual AI researcher who has spent 30 years in this field, it hits differently. The core insight of this book is this: we have built systems that work, but we cannot fully explain why they work. Modern AI, the deep learning systems running facial recognition, writing your emails, diagnosing cancers from scans. These are not programmed in the traditional sense. They are trained. And what gets created inside them, the billions of weighted connections that produce the output, is largely opaque, even to the engineers who built them. Wooldridge calls this one of the defining tensions of the field. We measure these systems by their performance. They perform spectacularly. But if you ask, show me how the system made this decision, in most cases, you genuinely cannot. Not fully. Now connect this to your own life for a second. You are already being evaluated, sorted, and decided about by these systems. Credit scores, job applications, medical diagnoses, content recommendations, insurance risk. Every one of these sectors now runs models that are, to varying degrees, black boxes. Not because companies are being sinister, because that's just how these systems work. Interpretability is one of the hardest open problems in the entire field. Here's the part that stopped me cold. Wooldridge points out that we've never fully defined what intelligence is, not philosophically, not scientifically, and yet we've built machines we're calling intelligent. We are measuring progress toward a destination we can't describe. We're running a race where nobody's entirely sure what the finish line looks like, and he's not catastrophizing. He's not a doomsday guy. That's what makes it land so hard. This is a sober, clear-eyed scientist saying, the thing we built is remarkable, and the thing we built is, in important ways, mysterious, and we should probably take that seriously before we handed the keys to everything. Now, before I tell you the last piece, I want to show you how these three ideas actually fit together and why most people reading about AI are drawing completely the wrong conclusion. Chapter 4, the part nobody talks about. Here's the nuance that gets buried in every AI conversation you see on the internet. People have been predicting general AI, a machine that can do anything a human can do, for 70 years. It has always been 10 to 20 years away. Always. Every single generation of AI researcher made this call and was wrong. Wooldridge is extraordinarily careful here. He distinguishes between narrow AI, which is real, which is here, which is genuinely transformative, and artificial general intelligence, AGI, which remains entirely theoretical. And he argues that the conflation of these two things is one of the most dangerous intellectual mistakes we make. When you hear someone say AI will cure all disease, or AI will take every job, or AI will become conscious and destroy humanity, those are AGI claims. And we have no scientific roadmap for AGI. We don't know if it's possible. We don't know if current approaches even point in that direction. What we do have is narrow AI that is genuinely extraordinary at specific tasks and getting more extraordinary faster than almost anyone predicted. The danger isn't a robot uprising. The danger, the real documented happening right now danger, is deploying narrow AI systems in high-stakes situations before we understand their failure modes. A system that's 98% accurate at diagnosing a disease sounds incredible, unless you're in the 2% and there's no human in the loop to catch the error. That's not sci-fi. That's a policy problem that needs solving today. Which brings me to the one thing Wooldridge implicitly argues throughout this book that you should actually take away from it. So here's what this book actually comes down to. AI is not magic, it is not evil, and it is not inevitable. It is a tool built by humans with human choices baked into every layer, and it will do exactly as much good or harm as the level of attention we choose to pay to it. If you take nothing else away, take that. The problem isn't that AI is too powerful. The problem is that most of the people using it don't understand how it works. Most of the people regulating it don't understand how it works. And most of the people afraid of it are afraid of the wrong things. This book fixes that. It's one of the clearest, most intellectually honest introductions to the field that exists. Wooldridge doesn't sell you a utopia or a nightmare. He gives you a map. Most people will hear about AI for the rest of their lives and stay confused on purpose. You now have no excuse